the height of glory for Israel in Scripture. That's when they are the most powerful. That's when life is good for all of the people. The phrase to particularly remember came right at the end of the video, and that's David was a man after God's own heart. All right, David is a king that God chooses. Remember, he is the shepherd boy out in the field. All of his brothers are looked at by the prophet. None of them are to God's liking, and so they go out and God chooses David, not because of some outward qualities, but because of what's in David's heart. Throughout the life of David, we see that he is a person who is just as human as all the rest of us. There are moments of really great loyalty is the word I'm thinking of. Loyalty to God. He follows God's commands, does great things for the people. There are also moments when David messes up. He sins. And so we see through the highs and the lows someone that strives to do what God has called them to do and be king. Anybody remember what David does in his lifetime? Cora.
He finds Bathsheba and he commits adultery with her.
That's right. That's one of the low moments of David's life, right? Commits adultery with Bathsheba. As a result, their baby dies, and that's not a real great moment for the couple or for Israel. Yes?
Slingshot thing?
The slingshot thing. What story does that come into play? David and Goliath, right? That's probably one of the more well-known stories. Remember, David's just a little guy at the time. Goliath is this huge Philistine soldier.
Wasn't he 10 feet tall?
Might have been 10 feet tall. I don't know.
It's not that tall.
Not that tall.
I mean, if you looked at the... It's like as tall as...
It's 4 feet taller than me. That's like...
That's taller.
You're
than
6
like
foot?
not much.
That's only like 8 foot.
So, David and Goliath. David, with nothing but a slingshot in front of all of the armies, goes out, and because of his trust and his faith in God, is able to take out Goliath. What else do we remember from David's life?
He became king.
He becomes king. That's right. He's anointed as king. What are some things that you remember about David's kingship that were really good for the people of Israel? What specific... The people loved him. They did that. What specifically does he do?
Well, he's very good at battle.
Yep, he's a good military commander. So he goes about, if you read in the book of Samuel, David is a great military commander. He goes out and has a lot of victories on behalf of Israel, and so the people love him for that. He's supported in God by that. What else do we remember about David's kingship?
He was a musician.
He was a musician.
He wasn't very good.
He plays the harp. Where do we have some of David's songs recorded?
Psalms. The book of Psalms.
The book of Psalms, right? So if we turn in our Bibles to the book of Psalms.
It's like the middle.
That's right in the middle.
Found it. I found it.
Hey, Psalm what? Shepherd.
You just
Psalm of David.
what? Right in the middle. What is it?
What's that?
I found Psalm 23.
Psalm 23, that's a good one. Let's look at Psalm 23.
I flipped right to it.
Wait, which psalm?
23.
23.
What page is it on?
871.
871.
I'm getting there.
Good find, Mr. Keener.
171 though, you told me.
I'm there.
Just did. I know, but now I gotta go like 605.
Alright, so this is probably the most well-known psalm.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not.
Anybody know where this psalm might be read most often? Funerals, I heard it. Y'all probably don't know that. But we say this all the time at funerals. Actually, we said it this morning at a funeral. Let's say Psalm 23 together. Let's recite it together. This is one that you probably ought to memorize. Here we go. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long. All right, that's it. That's the whole psalm. So we have lots of psalms. If you go through the whole book of Psalms, you'll see David's name a lot. What do you see right under Psalm 23, the divine shepherd? A psalm of David. All right, lots of psalms are attributed to David when he was king. What else do you remember that David does during his reign as king?
Well, it was right before he was king. He killed that one guy for laying hands on the king.
Oh, from the video. Yeah, the messenger that delivers the news of Saul's death. So remember, Saul is the king before David. Saul was anointed by God, and then the people kind of fall out of favor with King Saul. David is the one who comes after him. Another important thing to remember about David is that before he reigns, Israel is divided between the north and the south, between Judah and Israel. It's during David's reign that the kingdom is united. So let's all turn to the very backs of our Bibles. Not to Revelation, we're actually going to go back to the maps. To page 2102. All the way to the back, page 2102.
Should I get there anytime soon? It's a map.
All right. What does the title say?
12 tribes of Israel.
1200
1030 BCE.
All right. So, see the different colors on the map? They represent the different land holdings of the 12 tribes of Israel. So after Israel comes out of slavery in Egypt, after they wander in the wilderness for 40 years, after they cross the Jordan River, they divide up what is the promised land, and here we have that division of land amongst the 12 tribes. On the next page, we have a map titled United Kingdom of Israel. So this is what happens under David. And here, if you go to the bottom right-hand corner of the map, you'll see what the colors represent. So that first one, the yellow, or the golden color, that's Saul's kingdom. So see how small that is?
Yeah.
So that's the kingdom of Israel under Saul's leadership. So when I say that David unites the kingdoms of north and south, that's the green. See how far David unites the kingdoms? That's a lot of stuff. All right? And then the guy we're going to talk about tonight, Solomon. That's the pink at the very top. So that's what it looks like during the reign of David.
Was the Euphrates River important?
Yep, the Tigris and the Euphrates. That's where civilization gets started.
And the Jordan.
All right.
Yeah, that was important.
So, this is an important map for the time period in the Bible that we are talking about. All right, so David unites the northern and the southern kingdom. What city does David make capital of the nation?
Israel.
Oh, the nation is Israel. What's the capital city? Jerusalem, that's right. Can you find Jerusalem?
It's right next to the Dead Sea.
No.
Can y'all find it on the map?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Found it.
Wait, where's
I thought it would be in the middle of nowhere.
Right there.
All right. So, turn the page to page 2104. So, David makes Jerusalem the capital city. It's during the reign of David that people begin to think about we need to build a temple for God, but we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But let's just look at this again. This is a map of ancient Jerusalem. See in the upper left-hand corner the key to the map, the wall of David's city. You see where that is? Not the solid line, but it's kind of right in the bottom center. That's the old city of Jerusalem. So that's where David unites the kingdom under their capital. He brings the Ark of the Covenant to the city of Jerusalem, so that centers the worship life of the people of Israel in the city of Jerusalem. Remember, the Ark of the Covenant is what the people had traveled around with. It holds the tablets of the Ten Commandments that Moses brought down from the mountain. Originally, the Ark of the Covenant lives in a tent with the people. It travels around as the people move from place to place. But it's under the reign of David that David thinks maybe we ought to build a temple. So that conversation gets started. So, that's some catch up on David. Yes, question.
So, who lives there now? Like,
Who
what?
lives there now?
Like today? People.
Lots. Yeah, Israel. Jerusalem is a very, it's a contested city. There are lots of different people that live there. Lots of people claim Jerusalem. The Jewish people, Christian folk, Islam, our Muslim brothers and sisters. Everybody kind of has some ownership or some perceived ownership to Jerusalem. So it's actually a pretty fought-over place. They don't wage battles in the city, but it's heated is a good word to describe Jerusalem. All right, so let's get back to David. David's son is
Solomon.
Solomon. All right, so let's turn to the book of 1 Kings chapter 2.
What page?
You
No, we got 5.
Oh, it's not Second Kings.
What is it called?
1 Kings chapter 2.
43.
No, 548.
Oh, I was so close.
Oh my gosh.
What is it? Chapter 2? 548.
Chapter 2, 1 Kings chapter 2, page 548.
Such a big
Page 548.
So?
Who's not? Everybody there? We're good? 548. So, this is going to set up, we're going to watch another video here in just a little bit that'll give us a good snapshot of Solomon's life. Again, we can't read all of these stories because there's a lot. Remember that we're entering into the part of the Old Testament where the story becomes layered. So we have Samuel and Kings and Chronicles that reflect a historical glimpse of the people of Israel, the people of God. Then when we get into the books of Isaiah and Jeremiah and Amos, we have prophets that are reflecting on that time period in history. So remember, the Bible is not written chronologically. There are layers. And we're going to start experiencing that in the next couple of weeks as we talk about who the prophets are and where they factor in to the history of Israel. But for right now, this is at the end of David's reign. David is an old man. He wants to, bless you, he wants to pass the throne on to Solomon. So let's read his instructions. Let's start right here. We're just going to read the first 4 verses. So you 4, all the way to Eli.
Lucky.
Read those out loud for us.
When David's time to die drew near, he charged his son Solomon, saying, I am about to go the way of all the earth. Be strong, be courageous.
And keep the charge of the Lord our your God, walking in his ways and keeping his statutes, his commandments, his ordinances, and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, so that you may prosper in all that you do and whenever you turn.
Then the Lord will establish his word and that he spoke concerning me. If your heirs take heed to their way, to walk before me in faithfulness, and with all of their heart and with all of their soul, there shall not fail you a successor on the throne of Israel.
All right. So here's David, king, on his deathbed almost, talking to Solomon, who's going to be the next king. And here's kind of the promise. If you follow the ways of the Lord, if you follow the commandments, if you follow the teachings, if you remember the law of Moses, then everything's going to be fine for Israel. All right? Follow the commandments, keep the people in the faith, and everything's going to be just fine. All right? There's prosperity promised. There in verse 4, if your heirs take heed to their way to walk before me in faithfulness with all their heart and with all their soul, there shall not fail you a successor on the throne of Israel. So promising there's always going to be a line of kings. We're going to come to find out that this is not what happens, that everything kind of falls apart, but this is a promise. Listen to God. Everything's going to be okay with Israel. All right? There's a really good line in there. Walk before me in faithfulness with all their hearts and with all their souls. Does that remind you of something we learned a couple weeks ago?
Relationships.
Love God with all your heart, soul, and mind.
That's right.
Wait, what did you say?
I got it before.
All right.
But I had.
Do y'all remember a specific name for that, maybe?
It was called the
Milk song.
It started with an S.
Yeah.
Shire. It kind of sounded like my name.
The Shema. Y'all remember that? All right. So remember these words are all. All right. Let's listen. All right. So here are the words. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. All right. So spoken into that promise that David gives to Solomon is kind of a remembrance of the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. All right. So Solomon's going to take the throne after his father dies. We're going to watch a video on that right now.
I saw it.